Welcome to episode 21 of the Melton True Blue podcast. My name is David Harper, and today I'm joined by Eric. He's one of the managers here at Melton. I'm going to introduce him, let him share a little bit of background on who he is, where he's coming from, and kind of what you do for Melton. Eric, man, appreciate you joining us.
Well, David, thank you for having me. My name's Eric Boyles. I'm the terminal manager up here in Maisory, Ohio, one of the five terminals of Melton Truck Lines. I've been with Melton Truck Lines since 2007, so about a little over 17 years I've been with the company. So time flies when you're having fun, I guess. So it's been a while.
Awesome, absolutely. Now, before starting with Melton, were you already in the transportation industry? Were you somewhere else? What does that look like?
Actually was. I started my journey back in 1995. Basically, I was a 19-year-old in college just looking for my next job. And I was in a fraternity, and one of the fraternity brothers worked on a dock. And they needed somebody, so he ended up getting me a dock job. It was with an LTL company. So during that time, I did everything from load a truck to drive a truck to dispatch a truck. I worked in safety, claims, a little bit of everything. Back in 2007 is when I found out about Mountain Truck Lines. I was fortunate at that time to interview and meet Russ Elliott, Angie Buchanan, and also Rick Vincent. And they invested and took a chance on me. And 17 and a half years later, I'm still with Melton. I started as the orientation supervisor actually up here in Ohio when they opened the Ohio terminal. So did that for a little while, and I've been the terminal manager now for probably about 15 years.
Awesome. Yeah.
So
So sounds like you've been around trucking for a minute. All wonderful people that you mentioned.
yeah,
So pretty cool. So being around trucking for so long, now you've been with Flatbed for about 17 years now. Is there anything based on your experience that's unique to flatbed freight compared to maybe some other types of driving in the industry?
well, I tell you what, two things probably jump out at me with that. One is flatbedding's like a brotherhood. I think all trucking in general is kind of a brotherhood, but flatbedders are even more so, a little bit different. I can't tell you how many times I've heard and seen to where, hey, even though it's a Melton truck and we're securing our load or doing something, here's somebody from another company come over to help out because I need a hand, or vice versa. So it's a special bond out there, for flatbedders. I also like the fact too that we have to do with building something. Usually we haul a lot of steel products, things like that, to where usually we have to do with building it. A lot of times you could tell how our economy's going by what we're doing in flatbed, as far as building. If we're really busy, we're probably building a lot of stuff, so on and so forth. So those are two exciting things I think about flatbedding.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And I like to compare it to, flatbed driving. I like to compare it to the military in a lot of ways. There's a lot of similarities when it comes to the type of camaraderie that you experience as a flatbed driver, that brotherhood, that sisterhood. And
Yeah.
man, a flatbedder, they just look out for other flatbedders, like, kind of like you mentioned, it's pretty unique.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Definitely.
you mentioned the terminal manager out there in Ohio. What does a day in the life look like for a terminal manager?
I think one of the things I really like about my job is every day is different. You don't know what's coming at you every day. You do a lot of problem solving. I could have any of our 1,300 plus drivers at our terminal on any given day. We do everything here from process trucks to issue trucks to drivers. We also, one probably the most exciting thing in the past year up here is we actually just opened up our shop to where we're providing services to our drivers up here. Basically, we probably do about 95%, I would say, of trailer repairs up here. And we're also starting to do PMs on trucks to where we're offering drivers that chance to not only come in here to a terminal and, refresh and get equipment they need, but also provide them with them services to keep them going out there on the road. So, like I said, we stay busy with a lot of different things up here.
Right, right. So what would you say is one of the biggest like operational challenges that you face as a terminal manager?
Well, I'll say I think it's a challenge and it's an advantage too. Is I think when you're at a terminal, you wear a lot of different hats. You can't just be an operations person or a safety person. You got to learn a little bit of everything because you're a smaller group of people. We run a terminal here on a given day. We have 3 employees at the terminal. You have myself, Keith, who's our shop manager, and Jonah, our mechanic. And we have to know a little bit of each other's stuff in order to survive. So there's days I'm doing safety counseling. There are days I'm stocking a truck. There's days I'm mopping the floor if our cleaning crew drops the ball on us. It's you wear a lot of hats, but I think that's an advantage too, because you get to know how the other half lives. You have an understanding of how that wheel turns and what you have to do to keep going. So again, can be challenging at times, but you get a pretty wide knowledge base, which is good.
Right. So, with all the challenges that you face on a typical basis, like you talked about, every day's a little bit different. I wear different hats. As a terminal manager, how would you say that you balance efficiency with safety? Especially considering the complexities of securing and tarping a flatbed load.
No, absolutely. And it's a fine line with some of that stuff. Flatbedding takes time. It takes time when you go to a customer being loaded, securing that load, rolling down the road. I think as far as efficiency, you try to control the things you can control. What can I do productivity wise to stay as productive as possible? Probably the biggest thing right off the bat is running your hours of service properly. Your hours of service for a driver is their lifeblood. If you have hours, you can make money. If I don't have hours, I'm not making money. So how do I maximize that time? A lot of that is, can I coordinate stops? Can I do things like that could save time? And you want to try to get the drivers in the mindset of, what can I do to maximize myself, to make myself as productive as possible, to make as much money as possible. And a
Right.
lot of it just comes back to decision making and doing some planning. I think one of the biggest things we try to push too is have a plan. Every day before you put that truck in gear, you should have a game plan of what your day is going to look like. Now, all plans are subject to change. Yeah, and that's truck driving. You're going to run into things, traffic, so on and so forth. But have somewhat of a plan. And that way you can maximize those things to stay busy out there on the road, stay productive.
Absolutely. I have an opportunity to connect with a lot of students who are in CDL training and ready to come out here and be that professional driver. And that's one of the things that I talk about a lot is, one of the number one goals that you should have as a driver, right, is learning how to become efficient with your hours of service, because that's your lifeblood when it comes to, producing the type of income that you want to, earn out there. And a lot of that means, hey, I'm going to lean on the leadership, the management that's available to me. I'm going to lean on mentorship through experienced drivers. But that's one of the most effective things that in my opinion, that a new driver can do as they get out there and kind of start doing this job, is
Yeah.
learning how to get really efficient at it. So they're shortening that learning curve, if that makes
Yeah.
sense to you.
No, and it takes time, and you
Yeah.
have to learn your craft like any job, like any profession. You got to get out there. You got to, learn from mistakes. You got
Mhm.
to watch other people, see what they do. I think this is an industry, if you stop learning, you've got some problems.
Right.
I've been in it for 30 years and I'm still learning stuff on a regular basis, because you have to watch and you're learning new ways to do things, smarter ways to do things. And technology has come so far that, it's changing a lot of the way we do things to help make it more efficient,
Right.
so it's an ever changing world out there. That's for sure.
So speaking of that change, like you said, you've been around the industry for around 30 years or so. There's been a lot of changes, but let's think more recently. Something that's going to impact drivers today or new drivers coming to the industry. What are some of the changes that you've seen just over the last few years that might impact trucking in general, or more specifically, our flatbed drivers?
Well, I think what we're seeing a lot is we have a new generation of drivers coming into the industry. A lot of those, veteran drivers are getting towards that retirement age that have been doing it for a long time. So just like everything, you have a new generation coming in, and you have a lot of technology coming about. One of the probably biggest things we've done in the last year as a company is we've invested in tablets in the trucks. We used to have the Qualcomms for years. Now we have tablets, and there are so many possibilities with that tablet. We're constantly learning new things, developing new things, fixing new things with the tablet because it was a new thing. So you had a couple bumps in the road along the way, and there was a learning curve. But there's so much, we're working on stuff now to try to communicate as much of the advantages of it to the drivers and opportunities, so they know, because it's a piece of equipment that they have to play with a little bit to learn how it works. Like, one of the things we're working on now is to try to give more information on trip planning with the tablet, because a lot of drivers don't realize the tablet has things to where I can add cat scales into my routing to where, show me where the cat scales are at, show me where the truck stops are at, show me where Walmart's at. It has a Google map function to where I could zoom in right on the tablet and see, hey, what's that property look like I'm delivering to? Is there parking there? Does it look like there's parking there? Am I going to have a hard time getting into there? So it can answer a lot of those questions. And a lot of our drivers use a lot of different forms of technology. There's, of course, cell phones now have changed everything. Everybody has a cell phone in their truck now, or has a cell phone. But we have stuff on that tablet as a company we provide for you to answer a lot of questions for you. And we're constantly putting material on there to help educate our drivers, give them information, and just keep them up to date with everything going on. I think Melton does a good job at that, giving information,
Yeah.
constantly.
Yeah. And you talked about a new generation of drivers. You think of some of the more veteran drivers, the more experienced drivers, a lot of times there can be some apprehension among some of those guys when there's new technology or new resources that we're going to use. Sometimes they have to, come to that conclusion themselves like, hey, this really is a piece of gear that can help me, right?
Yeah.
The newer generation, these younger drivers that are coming in, man, technology, the things that we're using, the resources kind of fall right in line with probably what their expectations of the industry are already. And like you said, man, it's a tool that can help them go out there and be successful, using the type of equipment, the type of gear that they are already growing up with the iPhones, with the different, things that they use along the way. So I 100% agree. Man, technology is changing the industry, and it has been for a bit. But that's from a trucker perspective. What about from an operational perspective? Is there something that's unique or something that sticks out to you that's kind of impacted the way you manage the terminal out there when it comes to utilizing this gear?
Well, I think you try to use the technology to your advantage, as far as communicating different items on the tablet, keep that constant communication. And we do a lot of stuff too with drivers as far as wanting feedback from them. For years, Bob and our upper management has done round tables and things like that. And then the age of Facebook came out. So then they started having things like you mentioned, True Blue. We had the True Blue Alliance. That was a Facebook page for spouses many years ago, to where we can get some of their feedback. We have things like the Melton's Next Generation still on Facebook for drivers 2 years and less to try to get their feedback. But we have stuff built right into the tablet on every load, such as Rate My Load, to where a driver can tell us about their experience, because that's a chance too to find out, is this a customer we want to continue to do business with? Were there hiccups or problems with this? Did maybe we have an issue along the way? Or, hey, this is a great place, we want more freight from them, let's get that sales rep in there. So it has a chance to give you a lot of information. So I think that's a huge plus.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that rate my load,
Yeah.
tool right there to be able to kind of give that instant feedback from the drivers on, man, we love this customer, we love the freight, we love how they interact with us versus, hey, there's a lot of negative feedback coming from this. Maybe we should take another look at something else.
Yeah, and we have drivers too that maybe they have a negative experience based off of something that was done internally by Melton, like a repower. Like, let's say I repower with another driver, maybe I get bad equipment. If you do that Rate My Load, that gives us a chance to go back and have some conversations and find out what happened. And
Right.
we could do some coaching and try to prevent that from happening again. So it's a great preventative tool too, to go back and coach and try to prevent those future instances.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
Now, thinking, I guess, big picture, a little bit into the future, really, even now, what's the things that are transpiring? Are there any trends, any innovations that's kind of going on in the industry or coming down the pipe soon that you're excited about?
Oh, Well, I hate to keep talking about the tablet. The tablet, I'm excited about just the possibilities of it. You know, as far as other innovations, a lot of drivers will ask about electric trucks and things like that. I think that's probably a long way off, and I don't know if I don't know if that fits our business model, anyways. It being a over the road long haul trucker. So I'm not so excited about that one, but I'm excited too with the next generation of drivers, just some of the enthusiasm, that young person brings to a team and brings to an industry. I see different drivers and they come in here and you could just tell, man, they want to go out there and they want to do a good job and they want, and that keeps you going. I know for me, those guys are the ones that, especially if you're having a tough day or something like that, running into, we call him Tulsa Ron, or Mario, who has one of our wrap trucks. And,
Yeah.
guys like that, and there's many more, but guys like that, man, they perk up your day. They just make it to where, you just want to keep going,
Yeah, no,
you know.
absolutely. It is a little contagious. You know what I mean? You get around that type of mindset, it just
Oh, yeah.
reinvigorates you.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so, kind of getting back to flatbed, right?
Okay.
What would you say? You've been around it for a long time now, right? What are some of the most critical safety concerns when it comes to, flatbed loads, securing loads, moving freight from point A to point B?
Well, I think you first have to start with the securement process. You got to make sure you've done everything you need to do to make sure that trailer or that freight does not come off that trailer. Can ask yourself that question. Can it move front to back, side to side? Can it go up and down? Can it fall over? But as important it is that how you secure it, it's just as important how you drive it down the road. I could secure it perfectly, but if I drive like my hair's on fire, it's not going to stay on that trailer very long. One of the things that, Rick Vincent pushed very hard way back in the day, and it still sticks with me, is the Smith system. And it's something we still teach. And it's about space management, getting that proper space in front of you. Give yourself a chance to act on something instead of react to it. If you do that and you have that space and you have that ability, you're going to make your life a whole lot less stressful going down the road. You won't have that death grip on the wheel if you got a little bit of space.
Right.
So it's something that, I think when you start doing it, you start to realize, wow, this isn't so bad, you
Right.
know. So I would say those two things.
So yeah, proper securement, the
You know.
Smith system. Is there any other type of advice, especially some of these new drivers? Maybe it's their first job, in the industry. Is there other type of advice that you kind of routinely give those guys?
Well, I think I tell everybody, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to raise your hand. We provide a lot of different lifelines for drivers when they get out there on the road. Most of our newer drivers go out with a trainer to where that becomes a mentor to them. We have a road trainer hotline 24/7 where they can get a hold of somebody if they have a problem, issue, question, things like that. You're going to have a driver manager you're working with on a daily basis. That's basically in a lot of ways going to make sure you get from point A to point B and have everything you need in between.
Right.
You've got a safety department. There's just a lot of people that want to help you because if we can get you from point A to point B as efficiently and safely as possible, everybody's winning.
Yep.
Everybody's making money, everybody's doing well. So it's a win for everybody. So you got a lot of people in that process keeping that wheel turning.
Yep. I agree. And again, another conversation I'll have with guys that are in CDL school. It is a solo mission. You're a solo driver, but man, you have all the support around you that you're going to need to go out there and be successful. You just got to tap into it and use it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, is there anything that pops up in your mind about maybe a misconception someone might have about working in trucking?
Huh. Well, I'll give you a pet peeve of mine and probably something that just makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck is I hate it when you hear the term dumb truck driver, you know, because I think, there's a misconception on the road about truck drivers and they don't realize that there's a reason we're called professional truck drivers because it's a profession. We go to school to learn our craft. They don't give these out, in vending machines or anything like that. We have to go earn that certificate. We hone our craft. When we come to Melton, we spend 4 weeks training before you get your set of keys. There's a lot that goes into being a professional driver. I could tell stories of my wife going down the road because she's intimidated by a big truck next to her, and back in the day would say something. It's like, well, hold on a second. He's in his lane. He's not bothering anybody. And remember, he's the professional. I'd be far more worried about the four wheelers than I would be about the professional driver. Not that we're perfect,
Right.
but we take a lot of pride in what we do. There's truck drivers are they're some of the nicest and best people you'll ever meet out there. Yeah, some of them, a lot of them are introverted, or this and that, but there's a lot of them that aren't, and what, they take pride in what they do, and they just have a lot of passion for it, and it's I just think that people should just take a second to think about that misconception and talk to one.
Yeah.
Take a few moments, because you take a few moments, most of them will give you the shirt off their back. They're good people.
Yeah.
And they're smart people. I can't tell you how many people are driving our trucks with college degrees, master's degrees, things like that. A lot of people just want that freedom of the open road. They get out there. We've had multiple drivers I've dealt with. Hey, I was an accountant. I couldn't deal with looking at a screen anymore. I love being in my own office behind that steering wheel with no one looking over my shoulder and the freedom of the road,
Yeah.
and they're at peace, and it's a great thing. There's some peace. I mean, when I used to take trips from here to Tulsa and back, I mean, there's just some peace. You just kind of put the all the outside noise on hold, and you focus on what you're doing, and there's some peace to that.
100%. And I'm with you. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would be shocked to see some of the backgrounds where some of these drivers are coming from. Because, like you said, they come from all walks of life,
Yeah.
different industries. I mean, we've a lot of people, drivers might come from law enforcement backgrounds. They might come from accounting. They might come from the medical field,
Yeah.
from the military. It's not just enlisted, young enlisted guys.
Yeah.
We're seeing officers, enlisted, high-ranking service members leave the military, and like the idea of going out there and just kind of controlling my own fate, having that
Yeah.
open road, doing my thing by myself.
Yeah.
And these are very well-educated individuals that are going out there and building a career for themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Eric, little fun time here, man. I don't care how crazy it is, but is there any kind of story that really sticks out in your mind over the course of your career that you might want to share? Might want to give us a little laugh.
Tell you what, two things come to mind. One was a prank. Keith Stanley, our shop supervisor, many years ago was going. This is, a lot of people know this story, but it's still funny. He was going to Tulsa. He was actually up for Employee of the Year. Well, he had played a prank on me, and I hated Billy Big Mouth Bass, and he mounted one under my desk. And every time I walked in, it was take me to the river and drove me insane until I can get
Yeah.
it off my desk. So he went to Tulsa, and I listed his pickup truck for sale on Craigslist and said, call anytime you want. I'm only selling to feed my bass fishing addiction, because he put that fish under my desk, and put a ridiculously cheap price to where they blew his phone up in Tulsa.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and he left me a voicemail. The phone rang the next morning. It was a Friday night is when I did it, and his phone blew up. And the next morning, he called. I couldn't even answer the phone. I was laughing so hard. And he left me a voicemail that I left. I actually played it for Russ Elliott. I thought he was going to cry laughing. It was a pretty good prank. Another one, we had a veteran driver. This was years ago. His name was Raymond McDowell. Raymond has since passed. He was a special guy. But when he would come up here, we would always talk. He would ask me about my son. I would ask him about his grandson, and we, always had a nice conversation. Well, one day we went out for lunch, and spent some time, and he started getting on the girl there. They had all the employees were wearing hats. So he was nagging her about, the hat and this and that. And he finally got her to give him a hat. And he gave me the hat to give to my son,
Yeah.
and still have the hat. He ended up passing away on home time, many years ago. And I had just spent time with him at a company dinner. I sat with him and his wife, and he just a special guy. And it's just one of those things I always remember and think about, and, we, a lot of great memories. I
Yeah.
could probably go on for a long time on a lot of other things, but just, you spend a lot of time here. And if you like what you do and you like the people you work with, you have good times and good stories and good memories,
Yep.
and so a lot of good memories, but those are just a couple.
That's awesome, man. Appreciate you sharing.
Yeah.
So, as we kind of wrap up, if there was one piece of advice that you could give, a new professional truck driver or someone who's thinking about getting into trucking, what would that be?
I would probably tell them to take your time, do some research on your decision, of who you're looking to go with. Make sure it's a company that's safety conscious, because your CSA score and their score and, your ability to run out there cleanly it's going to be your lifeblood. Keep your CSA score clean. Drive legally, run your hours of service properly. You start gathering up CSA points and violations, now you become an insurance liability to where, a lot of companies can't look at you. They have, guidelines they have to follow, in order in that hiring process. So just keep your record clean, and you can have a very fruitful. You can make a lot of money in this industry, and really do a lot of whatever you want to do. There's a lot of opportunities. Just keep yourself clean. Don't get points.
Great advice, man. Eric, I appreciate you joining us today. Valuable insights, coming from you. Again, appreciate you joining.
Hey, thank you, David, for the time.
Absolutely. Well, guys, hope you enjoyed the episode. Make sure you come back for episode 22 coming up soon.